We're live from New Delhi. You're watching TT India News, India's voice to the world. I'm Nipakshi Khurana, coming up in the next hour. At the iconic Melbourne cricket grounds, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Prime Minister Anthony Albanese celebrate the power of sports, honour cricketing legends, inspire young athletes and showcase the deepening India-Australia partnership. Prime Minister Narendra Modi describes Indian diaspora as a living bridge between India and Australia, hails their contribution in growth of bilateral ties with Australia. West Asia crisis deepens as Tehran launches fresh strikes after second US attacks. President Trump briefs Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu as Gulf tensions escalate. Europe sizzles under relentless heat wave. France issues red alerts as UK and Spain battle soaring temperatures, while deadly wildfires in Spain claim 12 lives. And in FIFA World Cup, Mbappe strikes again as France beat Morocco to reach World Cup semi-finals. Well, on to the details now. Updates first on Prime Minister Modi's visit to Australia. Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited Australia's iconic Melbourne cricket ground, one of the world's most renowned sporting venues, during his visit to the country. Prime Minister was accompanied by Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, with the visit underscoring the strong sporting and people-to-people ties between India and Australia. During the visit, Prime Minister Modi met former Australian cricket captain Steve Waugh and presented him with a photograph from their earlier meeting when Prime Minister Modi was the Chief Minister of Gujarat. Prime Minister also interacted with former Australian women cricket captain Lisa Sthalekar as well as prominent Australian rugby players. Prime Minister Modi also met young players training at the stadium and interacted with them, encouraging the next generation of sporting talent. The two Prime Ministers toured the historic venue, with the visit highlighting sport's unique role in deepening the friendship and cultural connections between India and Australia. Well, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has announced that the Big Bash League will be played in India for the first time. The season opener between the Melbourne Renegades and the Perth Scorchers will be held in Chennai on the 12th of December. The initiative aims to further strengthen the sporting partnership between India and Australia.
Today I announced that Australia will bring the Big Bash League to India for the first time. The season opener for this summer's Big Bash between the Melbourne Renegades and the Perth Scorchers will be played in Chennai on Saturday the 12th of December. And it will kick off a week-long G'day Namaste festival of Australian sport, culture and business engagement.
Well, the two leaders also visited the Shane Warne stand at the Melbourne Cricket Ground, named in honour of the legendary Australian leg spinner. The visit underscored the deep cricketing bonds shared by India and Australia, with both Prime Ministers acknowledging the game's role in bringing the people of the two nations closer together. Well, Australia and India have also unveiled a roadmap for enhanced cooperation in sports, announcing the initiative alongside Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the Melbourne Cricket Ground. Anthony Albanese said the roadmap will promote collaboration in sports science, hosting major sporting events and expanding opportunities in trade, tourism and investment.
Mr. Modi and I are here to launch a roadmap for sport collaboration between Australia and India to strengthen our long-standing partnership. This roadmap will support practical cooperation in areas such as sports science and staging major sporting events, as well as broader opportunities in trade, tourism and investment. It will also build on new growing areas of shared passion.
Prime Minister Modi met with Australian opposition leader Angus Taylor. The two leaders held productive discussions on the growing India-Australia comprehensive strategic partnership. The warm and cordial meeting reflected the strong bipartisan support in Australia for deepening ties with India. Well, Prime Minister Modi met with Australian opposition leader Angus Taylor. The two leaders held productive discussions on the growing India-Australia comprehensive strategic partnership. The warm and cordial meeting reflected the strong bipartisan support in Australia for deepening their ties with India. Now, thousands gathered at Melbourne's Marvel Stadium for a landmark evening as Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese shared the stage. Prime Minister Modi praised the nearly 1 million Indian-born residents in Australia, highlighting their role as a vibrant bridge between the nations. Prime Minister underscored India's growing strength in innovation, science and technology, while also hailing the success of Operation Sindoor as proof of the country's advancing defence capabilities. There's more in this report.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed a large gathering of the Indian community in Australia at Marvel Stadium in Melbourne on Thursday. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese also joined the event. Prime Minister lauded nearly 1 million Indian-born residents living in Australia and expressed his excitement to be among the Indian community in Melbourne.
भारत और ऑस्ट्रेलिया का एग्रीमेंट एक शुरुआत थी और आज ये कारवां दुनिया के लगभग 40 देशों के साथ ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट तक पहुंच चुका है.
Prime Minister Modi also hailed Operation Sindoor, asserting that the strikes against terror camps demonstrated the immense capability and credibility of India's indigenous defense platforms, underscoring the country's growing confidence in its homegrown defense capabilities.
ऑपरेशन सिंदूर के दौरान डेमो तो देख ही लिया होगा. धमाके आतंकियों के अड्डों पर हो रहे थे और गूंज पूरी दुनिया में सुनाई दे रही थी.
Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese also took the stage to warmly praise the Indian-Australian diaspora.
Prime Minister Modi, my friend, welcome to marvellous Melbourne. As a true friend of Australia and a very dear friend of mine, it is an honour to host you this evening. And I also welcome each and every one of you out there in the stands. Over the years, this stadium has seen some loud and legendary events, and none more significant than this. The energy that we feel in here tonight defines the Australia-India partnership. It is an enthusiasm and a dynamism that drives the positivity and promise of our two nations and peoples.
As thousands cheered in unison, the evening ended on a high note, celebrating not just the enduring bond between the two nations, but also the Indian diaspora that continues to serve as a living bridge connecting their futures. With Amritpal Singh in Melbourne, Rahul Upadhyay's report for DD India.
Well, on more on this, we have DD India's Amritpal Singh joining us from Melbourne. Amritpal, Prime Minister Modi's visit to the Melbourne cricket ground carried a strong symbolic value. In fact, can you tell us more about the significance of this important and momentous visit and the key interactions he had at the iconic venue there?
First let me tell you the announcement that the Prime Minister made a little while back at the Melbourne cricket ground along with the Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, who was also accompanied by the Premier of Victoria province. That's where Melbourne is. Melbourne is a city in the province or a state, if you want to understand in Indian context, and the Premier is an equivalent of the Chief Minister. Anyway, the two Prime Ministers reiterated their resolve to strengthening cricket ties. They jointly announced a roadmap, a sports collaboration roadmap for increasing sports facilities in India, for increasing sports infrastructure in India and learning from each other. The other big announcement that Anthony Albanese made was that the Big Bash match would be held in Chennai. Big Bash is like a cricketing league, like you have your IPL back home. So they shall be hosting a match in India, further strengthening 2020 cricket ties between the two countries. The Prime Minister also made an important announcement saying that India, which is bidding for the 2036 Olympics, would want to learn from Australia, which is hosting the 2032 Olympics here in Brisbane. And to that, Prime Minister Albanese retorted, saying that Australia will support India's bid for the 2036 Olympics. Big announcement coming there from Prime Minister Albanese that Australia shall be supporting India's bid for the 2036 Olympics. Prime Minister Modi saying we shall work very, very closely with Australia, learn from their experience in 32 in Brisbane, where they host the Olympics. So clearly both sides reiterating, Lepakshi, a resolve to strengthen ties, sporting ties between the two countries, not just in cricket, of course cricket, but because they were at the iconic Melbourne cricket ground, but where I am right now, the two Prime Ministers are right behind me having lunch here at the Melbourne cricket ground, where Prime Minister Albanese is hosting Prime Minister Modi for a lunch. Here, Steve Waugh, Lisa Sthalekar, iconic cricketers were there to receive Prime Minister, and they're invited for the lunch again. So big announcements coming here from the Melbourne cricket ground, using sports as an integral tool of diplomacy, of strengthening relationships between the two countries, diplomatic relationship between the two countries and the peoples of both countries, and also using sports as an anchor for development of sports facilities, sports infrastructure, sports technology, training of sportsmen in India. Lepakshi?
All right. Important day indeed, Amrit, there. The roadmap includes cooperation in sports science, also major sporting events, trade, tourism, investment. The two countries have actually unveiled a roadmap for enhanced sports cooperation, as you mentioned. What are the key initiatives under this roadmap, and how will they strengthen India-Australia ties beyond cricket?
Exactly. You asked a very pertinent question. Though cricket remains a religion in both countries, cricket remains the anchor for the sporting ties between the two countries. But the two countries wish to expand this further to other sports, sports like footy, which is a version of football here, kabaddi, the Indian game of kabaddi, increasing it to hockey. In fact, many of the Indian origin and Indian migrant migrant players are a part of their hockey teams, of their, this lady Stalika, Lisa Stalika, is of Indian origin, though she's an Australian. She's been the captain of their women's cricket team. They've traveled much to India as both as cricketers and as sports commentators. So I think taking the relationship, I'm talking about the sports cooperation beyond just cricket, expanding the field of it. If Prime Minister Modi stands here at the MCG and says, right standing next to Anthony Albanese, that we want to learn from you in our bid to host the Olympics. So clearly putting a resolve to increasing the scope and the width of sporting ties, taking it beyond cricket, though cricket of course remains the mainstay, given the interest in both peoples about cricket in India and in Australia, but taking it beyond that. In fact, the Prime Minister walking and interacting with little children, who presented a footy ball, which is like a rugby ball, which had PM Modi written on it to him. The Prime Minister interacting with little children, sending a message that sporting ties need to be expanded beyond just cricket, and the two nations can learn from each other. More India, given that Australia is a powerhouse of sports. They are advanced in terms of sports medicine, sports science, sports infrastructure, how they manage the stadiums. In fact, where yesterday the Prime Minister held a community event or a diaspora event was in Marvel Stadium, which is a huge, huge stadium. So how to make that, how to take that infrastructure to the hinterland of India, how to manage that. So there is much India can learn from Australia, and Prime Minister Albanese committing, saying that they are ready to lend a hand of support, look for collaboration. The AFL, that's the Australian Football League, talking about, in fact, the President was here when the Prime Minister was here to receive him at the MCG. So a commitment to take, to increase the scope and width of this relationship beyond just cricket, Lipakshi.
All right. Also, Amrit, apart from the Melbourne cricket ground visit, the Prime Minister also met earlier in the day Australian opposition leader Angus Taylor. What were the key outcomes of that meeting?
The Prime Minister met Angus Taylor, the leader of opposition. He's from the Liberal Party. He's the federal leader of opposition. Along with him was the leader of opposition of the Victoria State or the Victoria Province, clearly signifying, that the support that India has from Australia is bipartisan. He held closed-door meetings with the government in place under Anthony Albanese at the third annual Leaders Dialogue, but the very fact that he chose to meet the leader of opposition, and the meeting lasted for good about 25 minutes, and not just the federal leader of opposition, but also the regional or the provincial leader of opposition was there. He had yesterday at the community event met Albanese, the Prime Minister, and he had also met the Premier of the Victoria, which is equivalent to the Chief Minister in India. So, the support, the engagement between the two countries, this signifies the engagement between the two countries is one, bipartisan, across bureaucratic and political divides, giving strength to the relationship and signifying a resolve to further deepen a relationship between the two countries, in various fields, from defense to technology, to maritime security, to security of the Indo-Pacific, to trade and investment, to sporting ties, to the ties between peoples of two countries. So, deepening and strengthening this relationship. And I think what transpired, I spoke with the leader of opposition of Victoria after that meeting. She said she was mesmerized by the vision of the Prime Minister to strengthen this relationship across various sectors. And she said that given Victoria, of which Melbourne is the capital, she said given the fact that there is a huge Indian diaspora here, about 400,000 Indian diaspora here, and
right.
At all levels, doctors, IT professionals, even the blue chip workers, the blue-collared workers, saying that they contribute to our economy, we value their contribution in our society, so clearly showing a bipartisan resolve to take the relationship to the next level.
Right, Amrit. In fact, day 3 of Prime Minister's visit to Australia also started with high-level engagements, and he was speaking about the diaspora. Thousands turned out at Melbourne's Marvel Stadium to hear Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese yesterday. What were the key takeaways from that event?
The key takeaways was there was an emotional connect between the Prime Minister and the large diaspora which had turned out. Marvel Stadium, a big stadium in the heart of Melbourne, 35,000 people, 35,000 Indians had turned out there. Prime Minister Albanese was there. The Premier of Victoria was there. So clearly, there was a connect. And when the Prime Minister spoke to them, they were enthused. I was at that stadium. One thing about Narendra Modi, he uses the diaspora leverage as a leverage to strengthen ties between the two countries.
Yes.
These are people who may be of Indian origin, who may have come from India, who are immigrants, but now they're Australians or they're working here. They are integral part of the Australian society. When the function started, the Australian national anthem was played and the Indian national anthem Jan Gan Man was played. I saw Australian children, second generation Australians, even first generations immigrants singing both national anthems with the same vigor. So the Prime Minister understands that very well and uses that as a key pillar of India's foreign policy. He's called them a living bridge because they are your ambassadors on ground. They are how they behave in public, how they contribute to their society, what they bring to the table, how they help the economy, businessmen, IT professionals, doctors, cabbies. I'm not just talking about the high-end Indians. I'm talking about everyday Indians who, build roads, who do farming, students who are an integral part, who contribute to the Australian economy. So that is a great leverage that India has, and the Prime Minister is smart enough to not just hold, closed-door meetings with the political leadership, but to host big stadium sized community events to use that as a pillar of India's foreign policy and to propagate.
So Prime Minister rightly called the diaspora there as the living bridge between both the countries. Thank you so much, Amrit, for all the details from there. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that cricket has always been a natural connecting point in his meetings with Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. Recalling their visit to the stadium in Ahmedabad, he said that being together once again at the Melbourne cricket ground reflected the enduring sporting bond between India and Australia.
भारत और ऑस्ट्रेलिया के संबंधों की एक मजबूत कड़ी है। आज प्रधानमंत्री अल्बेनीजी के साथ इंडिया ऑस्ट्रेलिया स्पोर्ट्स कोलैबोरेशन रोड मैप लॉन्च करना मेरे लिए बहुत ही खुशी की बात है। इसके तहत हम क्रिकेट के साथ अन्य खेलों में भी सहयोग मजबूत करेंगे। स्पोर्ट्स ट्रेनिंग, स्पोर्ट्स साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी के साथ मिलकर के हम आगे बढ़ेंगे। ऑन फील्ड के साथ साथ ऑफ फील्ड पार्टनरशिप भी मजबूत करेंगे। भारत में हमने सिर्फ टेक्नोलॉजी ही नहीं, स्पोर्ट्स को भी डेमोक्रेटाइज किया है।
Well, Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited Australia's iconic Melbourne cricket ground. He was accompanied by Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. Prime Minister met former Australian cricket captain Steve Waugh and presented him with a photograph from their earlier meeting when Prime Minister Modi was the Chief Minister of Gujarat. Our correspondent Amritpal Singh had an exclusive interaction with Waugh. Take a listen.
I have with me Steve Waugh, the iconic international and Australian cricketer. He was here to receive Prime Minister Modi at the Melbourne Cricket Ground. During your interaction with Prime Minister Steve, what did you sense about the commitment to improving sporting ties between the two nations and also developing Indian sports?
Yeah, look, it's fantastic. We've got a really strong relationship, Australia and India. Cricket is obviously at the foundation of that, but also, of course, with the Olympics getting more, I guess, airplay and time, I think India wants to be more involved in the Olympics, and we've got some expertise there. So hopefully we can share a lot of our expertise between the two countries and go forward together.
You've travelled a lot, Steve, in India during your cricketing days. Are you hopeful that what you saw back then, as you compare with what today exists, and the vision of the Indian leadership to make India a sporting power?
Yeah, well, cricket's changed a lot. I was just saying before, I first played here in 1986 against India, and then we played the Tide Test in Madras, and now 40 years later, there's a big bash game being played in India. IPL is the second biggest franchise model in the world in sport. So look, the landscape has changed, but two very powerful sporting nations with proud histories, and it's great we're working together more.
All right, Steve, thank you very much for talking to us. Pleasure. Clearly, he's hopeful. There is potential for a greater improvement in Indian sports and the collaboration between India and Australia to cricketing and sporting giants. With cameraman YK Loknath, this is Amritpal Singh for DD India at the Melbourne Cricket Ground.
Well, moving on, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to New Zealand marks a watershed moment in bilateral relations, with expectations of stronger cooperation across trade, investment, education and the Indo-Pacific. Our correspondent Akshay Dongre reports from Auckland on why this landmark visit is being closely watched by both the countries.
We're right now in Auckland, the capital of New Zealand, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to make a historic visit. And the visit is quite significant also because after a gap of about 40 years, an Indian Prime Minister is going to come to New Zealand. Both the countries, India and New Zealand, share historic ties. They share strong people-to-people connect. There is a strong Indian diaspora here as well. There is strong economic ties as well, but there is a lot of scope to strengthen the ties, especially when we talk about trade, when we talk about economy, when we talk about exchanges of people, about education, about the strengths of both the countries, that they can complement each other, and in the manners they can support each other when it comes to issues of bilateral but also multilateral issues. India is a resident part of the Indian Ocean. When we talk about New Zealand, it's a major part in the Pacific Ocean, and when we talk about the Indo-Pacific strategy of both countries need each other. That perhaps is the reason why President Narendra Modi is going to come to New Zealand to strengthen the relation that is there between the two countries. Last year, Prime Minister Christopher Luxon, Prime Minister from New Zealand, visited India, and that was a historic visit as well, and this is a follow-up visit to that. Now, there are a lot of areas where the two countries can in fact complement each other, where the two countries can support each other. When we talk about education, there's a lot to learn from one another. India is a pharmaceutical powerhouse. It has major scale. It is the world's fastest growing major economy. It is the world's largest country. When we talk about population wise, New Zealand is also a very advanced economy. It has advanced agriculture sector where it can teach a lot to India. When we talk about defense, the defense ties can strengthen by each other. Both the countries can learn from each other in terms of intelligence sharing, in terms of counterterrorism. When we talk about this visit by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, it's part of a three-nation visit. First, Prime Minister Narendra Modi went to Indonesia, where the visit was quite successful. Then to Australia, and in the last leg of this visit, Prime Minister is going to come to New Zealand, to the capital city of Auckland, where he's going to have bilateral talks with his counterpart, along with other high-level delegations that will be meeting each other and talking about trade, not just the free trade agreement, but the other ambits of it as well. But at the center is definitely going to be the FTA and how both the countries can actually move forward with the free trade agreement, and in what areas the two countries can help each other grow and get stronger. Now, this is going to be a significant visit, as we rightly spoke about the significance of this visit coming after about 40 years. There is a reason why New Zealand is, as a nation and as a geography, becoming more and more important for India, with India's own Mahasagar vision. and its own Indo-Pacific policies. There are a lot of Indians who live here. There are a lot of New Zealanders who go to India for their own businesses. There are a lot of business owners that do trade at their personal level, along with when we talk about organizations that are operating in each other's countries. So this is going to be a significant visit in that aspect as well. New Zealand as a country and as a partner has a lot of potential that has to be exploited by India, and vis-a-vis India is a huge market that can be exploited by New Zealand when it comes to the opportunities and the potential that is there, and that is why the Indian diaspora here is excited. But not just that, the top leadership along with the people of New Zealand are also anticipating this visit with quite a lot of enthusiasm and hopes that the two countries can come closer together and build stronger ties as well as stronger trade relations with each other. In Auckland, New Zealand, with camera person Jai Shankar, I'm Akshay Dongre, DD India.
All right, and ahead of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's historic visit to New Zealand, excitement is building across the Indian community. Home to nearly 300,000 people of Indian origin, New Zealand is preparing to accord the Prime Minister a warm welcome during the first visit by an Indian Prime Minister in 4 decades. DD India's correspondent Akshay Dongre spoke to members of the Indian diaspora and the president of the Auckland Indian Association to capture the mood and expectations ahead of the landmark visit.
Excitement is brewing in New Zealand ahead of the Prime Minister's visit. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is visiting New Zealand, and this is going to be a very significant visit, especially because after 40 years, an Indian Prime Minister will be visiting the country. And to speak more about it, we have a group of people who are from the Indian diaspora, and it's a special group because these people also represent the Auckland Indian Association, and the president of this association is present with us, Ms. Shantiben Patel. First of all, I would like to know about this association and about your excitement personally with Prime Minister coming here.
I'm very excited. I'm a New Zealand-born Indian, but I'm very patriotic. My father was a freedom fighter, so we've grown up to have very close ties with India. The Auckland Indian Association is 106 years old. It's the oldest Indian organisation in Aotearoa, New Zealand.
What is the excitement like here in New Zealand that you see?
Very excited. My phone doesn't stop. When am I going to get confirmation? People are very, very excited. It's the first time in 40 years we've had a Prime Minister of India visit us, and so the vibe is very humming.
Right.
See, as ma'am has told, and it's after 40 years an Indian Prime Minister is coming, and things have really changed in last 4 decades. Even the world has changed many folds. The IT and the industries and the economy of the world have really changed from the opening of the global economy in 1991, and today where there is more Indian working in the professional environment in different countries have really led India on the forefront of any economy.
What change do you see in India now? The perception of the country, the perception of the leadership that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has provided?
India has changed tremendously past few years. I mean, I'm sure you guys have got Apple Pay, Phone Pay, GPay, and all those things, and we don't have it over here yet. So when we are going in India, I actually have to use my mom's phone number to make payments and do the shopping and everything. Not only that, last year I traveled to quite a few places in India. I went to Kashi, I went to Madhya Pradesh, Indore, and all those places, and so beautiful, so clean, and all the facilities and everything, the security at the temples. You are able to travel alone in those places without any fear. So yes, a lot of changes in the past 15 years that I have observed while traveling in India now.
All right. Ma'am, what is the excitement like? What are the people saying, especially the Indian diaspora here, about the Prime Minister's visit?
I think my information says about 12,000 people or 1,200 people are very excited to come and witness this magnanimous event.
Right.
In New Zealand, everybody's pretty excited, and the Indian community and the diaspora is definitely excited. We've been looking forward to a presidential visit for easily 40 years now. So this is high time. We definitely are looking forward for Shri Narendra Modi ji to come to New Zealand.
Christopher Luxon, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, visited India recently. Yeah. Now Prime Minister Modi is coming here. Do you think that the engagement at the highest level is providing more opportunities for the Indian diaspora?
Yep, 100%. And the exchange of Prime Minister visiting to each other countries and Modi ji visit here, it is giving a tremendous, a opportunity for people to learn how the vibe of our Indian Prime Minister is, and the way India has been transformed in last 12 years. That's a tremendous. When we visit to India, it's transformed to a to a very next level.
The vibe basically that we have for India right now, with regards to trades, everyone is hoping high. More trades is more revenue for New Zealand, and definitely affects the GDP of New Zealand as well in a positive manner, and we look forward for that positive relationship with India.
Well, everybody has been talking quite profoundly about the formidable stature of our Honorable Prime Minister. I'm really excited because I have been studying, I have been watching lots of YouTube videos and lots of course, he's a superstar, he's always in the news wherever he goes. And it has been a great opportunity, and I'm so looking forward to it because I have seen many of the superstars from Hollywood and Bollywood coming here, but the real hero who would be in the flesh tomorrow, that would be something amazing, and I will take it to my grave.
What is your personal mood like ahead of the Prime Minister?
Very excited. It's that 40 years after which our Prime Minister is going to come here, and as all of them have mentioned, Prime Minister Modi has been like a global leader for us, and for youth especially, he's none less than a celebrity, and he coming here after 40 years is a very big deal for us because he's someone who's got India to a global stage.
Right.
15 years ago, probably someone has to introduce themselves of what India is, how do we come from, where we come from. But now when I have a conversation with people here, they already know a lot about our country, which is a very proud moment for us. I think Modi ji has to get credit for this because his main focus. He's worked relentlessly, and one of the major points that he's done is get us on a global level, and maintaining international relationships with a lot of countries, especially New Zealand, and being in New Zealand and going towards that is a memorable event.
And about the Indian diaspora and the businesses that are here, especially the people who are doing business with India, being of Indian diaspora as well, how does it benefit the strengthening of the ties?
Oh yeah, this will be huge. Because we have seen that the kind of potential, for example, the apples and strawberries that are grown here or cherries that are grown here, India is a huge market for them.
Right.
So the potential is huge, and in the coming next 5 years or so, you can realize that the economic exchanges that happen, and both countries are going to benefit, immensely. Thank you so much.
There is an immense potential as far as Prime Minister's visit is concerned, as far as the economic prospect of the two countries and how both can move ahead from here, this point onwards. Earlier, the Prime Minister of New Zealand visited India, now Prime Minister Modi is coming to New Zealand, and when it comes to the economic prospect, when it comes to trade and ties and economic relation, as well as the cultural ties, it is going to get a major boost with this visit. In Auckland, New Zealand, camera person Jaishankar Amakshidungre, DD India.
Well, as Prime Minister Narendra Modi prepares for his historic visit to New Zealand, DD India spoke exclusively to India's High Commissioner to New Zealand, Moanpui Saiwi, on the growing momentum in bilateral ties. She highlighted the Indian diaspora's contribution, the significance of the landmark free trade agreement, and expanding trade, economic and strategic cooperation that is set to define the next phase of India-New Zealand relations.
Now joining you from Auckland, New Zealand for a very historic moment, and that historic moment is the visit by Indian Prime Minister to New Zealand, which is taking place after a gap of about 40 years. And to speak more about this, we have the Indian High Commissioner to New Zealand, Her Excellency Ms. Moanpui Saiwi. Ma'am, thank you so much for joining us, and to speak more about this. What is the significance of this visit? We know that it's taking place after 40 years, but how significant is it for the relation between the two countries, and how is it going to strengthen the ties? We saw also Christopher Luxon, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, visit India just a while back. So how significant is this visit from the perspective of bilateral relations?
This is certainly a very, very significant and historic visit by the Honourable Prime Minister of India. As you said, it's taken a long time. 40 years hence, we are having here on New Zealand soil. The New Zealand government is very, very excited as well. This visit will be building upon the visit of Prime Minister Luxon to India in March last year. And both leaders had agreed to sign a free trade agreement. And we did that in April this year. And this visit, it will build upon that. It will focus on trade and commercial ties. It will focus on maritime security. And under the FTA, there are various components such as horticulture, agriculture, cooperation. those would be reinforced as well. And also tourism, culture, sports, diplomacy. These are some of the aspects of the visit.
What does each country has to offer to the other? We know India is the world's fastest growing major economy. It is also the largest country by the terms of population. It's a huge market as well. So what does it offer to New Zealand, and what does New Zealand offers to India when it comes to bilateral ties and exchanges when it comes to trade and economy?
Yes, certainly both our countries, our relationship is built on trust, reciprocity and complementarities, of course. As you rightly mentioned, India has a very huge market. India has a lot of skills. We have scale as well. And New Zealand, in that case, so they are very strong in these primary industries. So if you talk about honey, their kiwi fruit and their dairy, their productivity is very high. As you know, in India, agriculture, dairying, it affects the lives of millions and millions of farmers. So it's important that we engage with them, learn their techniques, and that our farmers can be able to have a higher income and better productivity. So these are some of the points. I also want to say that under the free trade agreement, there is a lot of scope for partnerships in joint ventures. There is scope for creating co-partnership in various areas where we scale up and we can both export to other countries as well.
Ma'am, you being the High Commissioner of India to New Zealand, what is the excitement like here, especially among the diaspora? You know, the diaspora is the living bridge between the two countries in a sense. We also have a strong diaspora here. So what is the excitement like and what are the preparations like?
So I've been here for 3 months and I have been constantly engaging with the very vibrant and active Indian diaspora here. There are 3 lakh plus. And they are so excited to receive Honorable Prime Minister. And there is an event called Kia Ora Modi. Kia Ora is like Namaste. So it's a kind of branding that they've put. And Honorable Prime Minister will be addressing them. There will be cultural shows and they have really worked hard and volunteered and done so much to receive Prime Minister Modi. I couldn't be more proud of them because they are very talented and they contribute a lot to New Zealand. They contribute a lot back to India as well.
Coming to your last point, how the contribution, when it comes to education, when it comes to other cultural ties, what is the scope to strengthen the ties between the two countries? In terms of education, student exchanges, other areas of exchanges that can be explored and can be strengthened with this visit.
Yes. Also, under the free trade agreement, there is something about highly skilled professionals, mobility. Also, there is something about highly skilled students that can work here. Other than that, I wanted to say that there is institution to institution relationships and faculty exchange and students exchange as well. There is also something on Antarctic and polar research cooperation. So there are various areas where we can cooperate.
Ma'am, thank you so much. But coming to a different sphere of questions, India is a resident power in Indian Ocean. New Zealand has significant power in the Pacific Ocean, and India has a vision of strengthening ties with the countries in the Pacific Ocean, in the Indian Ocean, with the Vision Mahasagar and the Indo-Pacific strategy. So where does New Zealand find a place in that strategy?
Absolutely. You would have noticed that our Honorable Prime Minister has just visited Indonesia. Now he's in Australia and then he's coming to New Zealand. And this entire theme of this visit, you can link with his vision of mutual and holistic advancement for security and growth across the regions, Mahasagar, which you had pointed out. So these are all maritime nations. The oceans are very important. We need free and open, unimpeded commerce, free and open Indo-Pacific. In that, already New Zealand and India are engaged. Last year, we had defense cooperation MOU signed, and we are building on that. So now we will have more focus on maritime engagement. And in the process of this visit, you will see that New Zealand has already joined Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative, IPOI. So please stay tuned and you will see more discussions on maritime.
My last question will be about free trade agreement as we that remains one of the key issues here and key area which can strengthen the ties between the two countries. India has already signed it with Europe. India has signed it with the UK, in terms of a common New Zealander, in terms of the government of New Zealand, the economy of New Zealand, how will it benefit this country when it comes to the free trade agreement? How is it going to benefit the people here and the economic prospects here in the country when it comes to the strengthening of economic ties?
First and foremost, the most simple answer is India is a huge market.
Yeah.
That is one, but that is the most simple part of it. This relationship, this free trade agreement will really open doors for economic partnership.
Right.
And I believe that with the strengths of India, the scale that we have, and the human resources that we have, and what New Zealand has to offer in terms of their sustainability and their best practices, their productivity.
Right.
When we work together, we co-partner, we co-create. We are both very, very innovative countries. I think we can work together, and it will be because we need to build resilient supply chains. And I believe that in a very competitive world, we can work together for both our economies to grow and prosper.
Right. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us and giving us all those detailed answers. So that was the Indian High Commissioner to New Zealand, Ms. Moanpui Saioi, and she told us all about the bilateral aspect of the ties and about the historic aspect of this visit by the Indian Prime Minister, especially given the fact that there is a lot of geopolitical churn, new alliances are being made, and countries are getting closer together, strengthening ties and not building ties that are over-dependent on each other and are mutually beneficial. And this relation between India and New Zealand can be an example of that. With camera person Jai Shankar and KK Rana, I'm Akshay Dongre in Auckland, New Zealand for DD India.
All right, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.